Welcome to our channel. Here, we read Bible stories improvised for children and adults alike. Jacob had been a cheater and a liar. His name even meant deceiver. It all came back on him as his father-in-law cheats him over and over again. God continues in his love and grace to work on Jacob. In today's story, God meets with him again. Our Bible verse today is James 4:10. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord. When we sin, we are to ask forgiveness. This takes humbling ourselves by submitting to the authority of another without personal pride. The rest of the verse is, and he shall lift you up. As a forgiven child, you will have your tears wiped away and remove the sadness of your heart, thus filling your heart with joy. Our story today is entitled A Wrestling Match in the Dark, taken from Genesis 30 to 33. After 20 years in Haran, Jacob was a very rich man. Part of his wages for the rich work he did for Laban was paid to him in sheep and cattle, and just as God had promised, his herds increased by leaps and bounds. Then God spoke to Jacob and told him it was time to begin the journey back to his own home, and God promised to take care of him on the long way back. He said nothing to Laban about his plan to go, because he knew Laban would try to keep him back. He was too valuable because of the good work he was able to do. So off they went while Laban was away. But Rachel made a bad mistake. She stole 2 images that belonged to Laban. And when Laban heard 3 days later what had happened, he set out after Jacob and his party. On the 10th day, he caught up with them at Mount Gilead. Laban was very angry, but after a long talk together, he and Jacob came to an agreement. At a place called Mizpah, they promised never to harm each other. So the long stay in Haran came to a happy ending. But Jacob still had something very frightening ahead of him. You will remember that Jacob had fled from home because Esau, his brother, wanted to kill him. Now, on the way back, he decided to send messengers ahead to find out whether Esau was still so angry. Jacob had forgotten for a moment God's promise to be with him and to take care of him. When the messengers returned, they brought shocking news. Esau was coming out to meet them with 400 men. Jacob was so afraid that he divided his party into 3 groups. If the one was captured by Esau's men, then the other 2 would escape. That night, they set up their camp, and Jacob sent Esau 580 goats, sheep, camels, cattle, and asses. Then he took his wives and children across the brook Jabbok and went back alone to spend a night in prayer. But suddenly in the darkness, he felt a man grasp him and began to wrestle with him. And that wrestling match went on right through the night until sunrise. It was a terrible struggle, so hard that one of Jacob's thighs was put out of joint. And then he suddenly realized he was not wrestling with a man, but against an angel from heaven. The angel cried out to him, "Let me go, because the sun will soon be rising." But Jacob would not let him go until the angel had blessed him. Then the angel asked him his name. He answered, "My name is Jacob." Now Jacob means deceiver. The angel then said, "Your name will not be Jacob any longer, but Israel, because you have wrestled with God and won." And then the angel blessed him, but he would not tell Jacob his own name. When the sun came up, the angel went away, but Jacob's leg never healed. To remind him of his experience, he remained a cripple to the end of his life. Jacob gave that place a special name. He called it Peniel, which means the face of God, because it was in that place he had been face to face with God. The next morning, when they crossed the river, there was Esau and his men right in front of them. Jacob bowed low before Esau, but Esau ran to meet him and kissed him. The 2 brothers wept with joy to be together again after all those years. Esau forgave Jacob for the way he had treated him long before. He did not even want to take the wonderful present Jacob had sent on to him, but Jacob insisted. Then Jacob and his party moved on into the land of Canaan until they came to a place called Sukkoth. There Jacob set up his camp with stables for the cattle, and he and his family settled down in peace. I want you to think for a moment. Have you ever been estranged from another family member, and then you think they might be upset at you, and they come to you, and they're so overjoyed to see you? Imagine how much joy Jacob would have felt at the at the greeting of Esau. Let's repeat our verse. James 4:10. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord. What did we learn from this story? Remember, what does humble mean? Submitting to the authority of another without personal pride. Thank you for joining us on our Bible reading journey. I hope you can join us next time as we continue our story. As Jacob, who is now called Israel, has 12 sons who are jealous of Rachel's son Joseph. Our next chapter, Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery.